Welcome back to Tell This Story. Now, this is a little bit different than the normal episodes that I do because I don't have anybody else. This is a solo episode. This is just me and you spending a little bit of time together. No guests, no questions, no nothing. There's some reasons for that. One, this is not the first time that anybody's listening. If you're here, you didn't find this episode by accident. So it's somebody who follows me. And I should tell everybody that I launched this podcast and tell this story specifically to tell the story, to tell my story, to tell our story. People who have served in the military, who have been first responders, carried a heavy allostatic load, and who've experienced the full range or bits of the range of physiological and neurological issues that come with a life of service. PTS, depression, anger, rage, shame, guilt, all of the things, sleeplessness, hormonal imbalance, family issues, social anxiety, all of those things. And I launched all of that um, because of my book, Hiding in Plain Sight. And the podcast was to support the book, and the book was supposed to support the podcast, and that was going to be the message. And there it is. There's the story. Not what happened to me, but the things that I experienced and what I allowed to continue because I didn't seek help. One, I wasn't aware that I needed help. And then when I became aware, I did not do it. And it led to nearly the end of my career. It led me to self-select several times throughout my life and pull myself out of places and experiences. I devalued my entire 14 and a half year military career due to a shortfall that I was the only one that saw, being too critical or hypercritical of myself and my actions, and identifying shortfalls in myself because I was speaking harshly to myself. And all of these things came about from journaling after I retired. No matter how dark I was during my, nearly 31 years in uniform, I actually got much darker after I retired. Suicidal ideation had been there well, October 19th, 2019 was the first time that I really had considered it and subconsciously made a move to actually carry that out. And it scared me. And I had experienced it once I started getting help. I experienced it several more times, but nothing to the degree until after I retired. When you separate from the military or you retire from one of the first responder disciplines, there's a whole host of things that go on. One, now you're left alone. You have no tribe. How is this going to work out financially? Now I have to pay for my own insurance, or how do I do these things? Losing tribe, losing purpose, all of the existential things that go along with it. Then you start seeing some of the health issues and some of the physiological and neurological issues that come along with, you know, finally slowing down and recognizing that stuff. And now you have to answer to those things. One of the things that helped me quite a bit was journaling. And if you've heard me before, you'll know that I've been dismissive about journaling, especially when I was told, "Hey, you need to write a book, or you should journal. You should write this stuff down." And I was always very, very dismissive of it. That stuff doesn't work. We're going to talk about our feelings. That's stupid. This stuff doesn't work. But I'm here to tell you, yes, it absolutely works. And when I started doing it, I found that the ideas and the things that I'd never put words to and never put feelings to were pouring out of me. So much so that I couldn't turn it off. But there were points when I was doing that journaling that I would crack something open that I didn't know was there. And I had to sit with it. And there were points during this journaling that I pushed away from the project for at one point 6 weeks. Not a keystroke, not a thought, not how am I going to work through this or anything. I was actually planning in detail on how I was going to seek retribution for a suspect that I'd put in prison. The day he was released, I knew where he was going to be, where he's being released from. All the information is public information. I knew where he was going, how long it would take for him to travel from one place to that place. And I had everything figured out. He was not going to see the sunset on his first day of freedom. And that's how dark I'd gotten. I even went further in that when I was journaling, and I basically reduced my existence on this planet to the pension check. If I'm not here, then that's a financial hardship to my family. So I have to keep breathing so they still keep getting my pension check. That was my worth on this planet, a paycheck and health insurance for my family. And it was a very, very dark place. And then when I had the journal done, and let me back up a little bit. My fear of unraveling all those things was quickly dismissed. Once I started typing and once I started taking notes, these little green notebooks. If you're a veteran or you've served any time in the military, you're still in the military, you've seen these green books, the Federal Supply Company books. They were good for pass-ons. Officers and COs would carry them around and write down stuff in them and their thoughts. I filled these up like, well, like they were free. They're not free. They used to be free, but they stopped being free in 2007 when I separated. Um, but I was filling those things up. I was running out. I had notepads all over the place, and I started typing in the laptop, and there was nothing on that blank screen that was judging me. I didn't have to measure words. I didn't have to think, what is this person going to think if I say this out loud? So I was free to throw it all out there. Problem was, once I put it all out there, and I was finally to a point where I think, hey, I've got something here. 77,000 words. 77,000 words for reference, and you've probably heard me say this before. In a paperback book, a 5 by 9 paperback book, that's roughly 350 pages. That is a thick, that is a Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter thick book of thoughts and feelings. And then when I went back and looked at all of those things, again, I said them all out without fear of judgment, without any issues with somebody saying, oh, this guy's weak or whatever. It was just pouring out of me. But then I had to go back and look at it. And I started reading through those things and, what was to be my hero's journey, the Odyssey of Doug. I didn't like what I saw because for 77,000 words, I had written myself as a victim or a bystander in my own story, which was crazy because anybody who's ever met me, anybody who's ever worked with me, for me, or around me would never, ever say that I was a victim of anything or a bystander to anything, especially my own story where I should be the central character. You should be the hero in your own story. And I'm not talking about being a narcissist, but at least speak kindly to yourself. And I was saying things about myself and writing myself in a way that no one had ever said about me to my knowledge, or at least never to my face. And I had to sit with those things. And I really had to dive in and peel back. Why am I speaking to myself in a manner that no one else would dare speak to me? One, because it wasn't factual. And two, there wasn't a lot of people in my life that had the character or really the courage to bring that shit to me. Yeah, folks, this is live and this is real. My son is actually texting me right now. Can I get Chick-fil-A? Yeah, bud. Too funny. Yeah, he's 18 now. I hear from him when he wants car keys at Chick-fil-A. So even though he lives right above my master bedroom. So anyway, I had to think to myself, why am I speaking to myself this way? I would never allow anyone to speak this way to me. So I sat with that and I dissected it. And in doing all of that, I found that I had to, one, sit with it and really dive into each event and each incident. I had to find my shortfall, my culpability, because these were choices that I made, things that I did. These were my actions, no one else's. I wasn't compelled by anybody to do these things. They were of my own volition. I knew that I needed help earlier than I got help, and I did not. My decision to get help, yes, I was helped with that decision, and my wife bravely um, brought it to my attention. If you've written Hiding in Plain Sight, if you've heard me on The Proud Police Wife or First Alarm Family First, or really anything, you've heard me tell the story about Michelle's impact on the morning of October 19th of 19, and even before. So or you should be aware that I refer to her as my hero, my shield, and my retreat. So yes, she helped me quite a bit, but in this unraveling of my journal, it had to be me. Because there were things in there after she read it, because I gave it to her after I sat with these things and figured it out. And she said there's things in here that we had never spoken about. And there's things in there that I had never put words to, as I already discussed. But I had to sit with those things and really figure out, is this the reality, or is it just my perception of this? And I asked several people. My buddy Mark, who appears in my book, the vignette, in the beginning of the book, or in the middle-ish of the book, the vignette called "We Went to Work." Mark was with me on the shootout. I had trained him, and I even called him, and I said, "Hey, bro, this is what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling and thinking. What are your thoughts on this?" And as only Mark or only a few people would, they spoke to me in a way that I understood, and in a way that would bring clarity to me, and bring me the information that I was looking for from a place of care. A good friend. And I called my buddy Trevor, one of my old teammates. I called Jim. I mean, several people that y'all don't even know of because they haven't been mentioned in the book, but they're in there. They're part of the story. And I had to sit with that stuff and then figure out where my culpability and my own issues were. And then I had to go to those people. I didn't have to. I chose to go to those people after I had owned those bits of my story, my shortfalls, where I could have done better, in places that honestly I was a complete shit and could have been so much better than what I was. And let's be clear, I never, while I was working, I never showed up as the best version of myself as a dad, as a husband, as a friend. I was completely consumed, overinvested, and overcommitted in my roles and what that meant. I wasn't a good person. I wasn't as good a person as I could have been, or I should have been. And for those things, I had to acknowledge. I didn't have to. I chose to acknowledge and atone for those things. And in doing so, I had conversations with Michelle, that things that had bothered me 17 years prior. I had to say, hey, this was said all these years ago, and this is how I took that. But however, I was unjustified in feeling that way, because what you said, you were right. I mistook it for this, when in actuality it was this. You were asking, in this one particular instance, Michelle told me once, when the kids were very young, that I feel like I'm doing this all by myself. And I was so offended by that. I was like, man, doesn't she see all the overtime I'm working, all the off duty I'm working? I'm on a specialty team. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm spread so thin, just trying to provide a better life so she can stay home and take care of the kids and raise the kids. She's not seeing that. That's where I was. That's not what she was asking at all, and none of those things mattered. It was my presence, me being engaged, me being part of this and part of our team, that is what mattered, is what she was asking for. It was a cry for help, and I didn't see it. I took it as a slight on me. And in 2024, or 23, one of the two, after I'd done the journal, I told her these things. You weren't wrong. You were asking for my help, and I didn't see that. And I'm sorry. And I did that over and over. And the fantastic thing about that is it led to a degree of communication and a degree of authenticity that I'd never experienced before. I was unafraid, completely unafraid. Once I started owning the bits of my journey that I'd written in that journal, and correcting the way that I thought and the way that I saw myself, and reminded myself of who I was, what I am capable of, and the value that I really truly bring to this world, despite what the imposter syndrome brain is telling me, and that you could have been better here or been better there, or you should have done this way, or all of those things. I got rid of all the garbage, the story I was telling myself, and really looked at it for what it was. I atoned for the things that I needed to atone for. And I started doing things to make myself better in the areas that I could have been better in then. As far as being a dad, I used to react. There's several parts in my book where I talk about where I just reacted instead of stopping, processing, naming the emotion, looking at it. And I'm not talking like days. I'm talking about 30 seconds, a minute, to stop, identify the emotion, put the emotion to the side, and respond in kind to whatever that stimulus was. Spilt milk. Jesus, you can't even pour a bowl of cereal, or pour milk in a bowl of cereal. Who can't do that? That's what I'm thinking. I'd never said that to one of my kids, but I would be enraged. It's like, my God, it's the simplest thing. Instead of saying, hey, we spilled the milk. It's spilled milk. Nobody gives a shit. I didn't teach you how to pour milk into a bowl of cereal, but since we have this opportunity, Let me teach you how to clean milk up off of a countertop and the floor. A response, not a reaction. So these were the things that I learned and the things that I'm doing now. Even though my kids are 18 and 20, I'm doing the best that I can to not erase that stuff, but to lead them to an understanding as to why. And of course, owning, I'm not saying, oh, this was PTS. I was in a bad way. No, 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 no. Hey, I experienced these things. I had normal reactions to abnormal situations. Because of that, this is the state my body was in. I chose not to get help once I identified I was having an issue. And because I chose not to get help, this pattern continued and got worse. And because of that, I was not present. I reacted poorly. I overreacted. I yelled when I did not have to yell. I made these choices because I did not make the choice to admit that I had an issue or that I had problems and I needed to address them. I. That's the point of this. I was talking to my friend John Kelly yesterday, the law enforcement life coach. And yes, he's the law enforcement life coach. And I would like to say he's not my coach, but he really is as a friend and as a mentor. Excuse me. I wish I could say this episode was probably brought to you by Stanley, but it's not. Anyway, John Kelly is an absolute gentleman. He and several others in this space have taken me under their wing and are pouring into me because they want to see me be successful. I'm on mission. I'm on mission with them. And we're all talking about the same things, but they don't see this as a competition. They see this as a collaboration. And because of that, they take the time to be a friend, to be a big brother. And it's something that I don't even have the words other than grateful for. But he and I were having the conversation because I'm being honest here. I am very nervous about presenting at the Wounded Blue, their survival summit. It will be the second time that I speak in public about this. It will be the first time I'm delivering that specific block, not of instruction, but my material. And I will have 200 sets of eyes watching me and listening to me tell the story. And it's a little nerve wracking because I know these are things that still make me emotional. I know that when I get up there, there's going to be a catch in my voice. I know that I am going to have to pause and deal with the uncomfortable pause, intended or not, in a room full of 200 people on what I would consider a very large stage. I mean, I'm traveling away from my home in Central Florida to go to Vegas for a week to do this with some names that are, well, hell, there's no junior varsity names on that list, just me. It's like the water boy got a jersey for the day. That's, anyway. What I'm saying is not that I'm the water boy. It's just I highly respect everybody else that's going to be there speaking. It's a very exciting thing, and it's a great opportunity to get in a rep on or getting better in this space and bringing value to the people who are looking at me to bring value. So I'm optimistic, but I'm cautiously nervous. I'm excited, and I was sharing this with John, and I've shared it with a couple others. But John told me yesterday, in his own way, and I wish I could mimic his voice, but brother, he said, people are coming to see Doug White. Just be Doug White. And he said, writing your book is not being vulnerable. He said, you wrote a book, it's a great book, but it's not being vulnerable because you're not sitting in a room when somebody's reading the book. They're not telling you how they feel when they're reading your book. You're not seeing their facial expressions, whether your story is landing or not. You've put it out there, and that's not. It was vulnerable, but it is not basically extensive vulnerability. He says, for true vulnerability, you have to be naked. And he said, and being on that stage, and he says he's done it hundreds of times, but there's nothing like it. He said, you are going to get emotional. It is going to drain you. It's going to take you time to reset. People are going to resonate with the story, and people are going to resonate with what it is that you did to get better. But he did say that true vulnerability is telling your story to people live while you are watching their reactions, whether it's landing or not. Seeing people shudder when you say something, somebody nod their head in recognition because they've seen a piece of themselves in your story. I think back to in that conversation, I thought was thinking back to Scott Mann, the retired Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel, and I know you've heard me speak about him before. He's a great human being. He lives here locally. I've met him a couple of times, and he's a hugger, which is cool. He's one of the guys that have been a drive-by mentor for me, and me wanting to tell this story in person on stage actually came from, well, it was a perfect storm. It was a deputy that I used to work with who committed suicide, took his own life. And it was just before the book came out. In fact, it was a manuscript that quite honestly scared the hell out of me. I was afraid of my book because I was about to give it to the entire world. Every shortfall, everything that I could have done better, my largest failures as a cop, as a military service member, as a dad, as a husband, every weak moment is there. I gave it away to the world, or was giving it away to the world, and it scared me. But on that same weekend that my buddy had passed, I started thinking about the power of my story and the impact it may have not have had on him, but the impact it could have on others who found themselves in the same position that I found myself in on October 19. And I just thought to myself, what if telling this story is going to make a difference? And that same weekend, I saw Scott Mann's TEDx talk. He wrote a play. It's called Last Out, Elegy of a Green Beret. But his TED talk, this specific TED talk, he's done rooftop leadership too, but this specific one was The Generosity of Scars. If you have not seen this, if you are thinking about public speaking, if you're a public speaker, if you're a storyteller, if you want to start a podcast, write a book, or just get fucking real and find something that is just going to inspire you, grab you, drag you down, beat the shit out of you, and then let you go as a better person, then you must go to YouTube. And I don't care if you stop this podcast now and go to it, but you must go to YouTube, type in Scott Mann, The Generosity of Scars. Folks, I have seen this thing more than a dozen times, and I see it, and I have the same visceral reaction on the 10th and 12th time as I did the first time. I was on the edge of my seat for the entire thing. And he has several concepts in there, and he's bringing out bits and pieces of Last Out, the play that he did. He's acting it out himself, and he stops and he talks about points of why he's doing it, and basically authentically connecting with people through storytelling. And he explains that people listen to stories autobiographically, meaning that they're looking for parts of their lives in your story. And by us stepping out and telling our story gives shade or space for other people to do the same. Not permission. It just allows them an opportunity to see that, hey, there's benefit here. This person can do it. Why can't I? He talks about the dictionary definition of a scar. And then he talks about his definition of a scar being connective tissue that binds us all. And, he says there are scars, and I'm going to mess this up because I'm not as eloquent as Scott. He's incredible when he does this, and again, I encourage you to watch it. But he says the really good stories and the really good scars are the ones that we don't want to tell the other people. But the good scars are the ones we don't want to tell other people. The really good ones are the things that we don't want to tell ourselves. And I bring that back to John's conversation with me yesterday that you have to be naked. You have to give it all out. So I know I'm talking in circles and I'm all over the place with these ideas, but this just struck me today when I was in the car. First, I want to say that I am barely handsome enough to be on a podcast when my hair's done. You'll notice that the gray is fully flying today. I have no product combed my hair or anything like that. Apparently, being light-skinned male of Irish descent and working outside in Florida for 25 years, I had some skin issues. So you could see a little bit here on my temple and my forehead and all that stuff that there were places where they froze off my face yesterday. And there's more on my scalp, but they actually cut a dime size lesion off the back of my scalp yesterday. So no hair product or anything because I've got an open wound back there. But um, yeah, you've got me. I've got crusties on my face that were frozen off that are precancerous and nothing in my hair. And this is about as naked as it gets. I'm wearing shorts, hyperbole, folks. This is not that kind of show. But I started thinking about that, and I want to share something with you now that something that I've been experiencing since I've been on this journey, and it's been very impactful. If I've had people reach out to me, "Hey, how do you write a book? Can you help me with my book? Would you read this? What do you think about me writing a book?" There's probably a half dozen people that I'm working with now, and working with is kind of an oversoul of the word. People that I'm speaking with and just encouraging and listening to who are writing a book and who want to write books and to tell their stories. And it's been fantastic just to be able to connect with people. Again, like Scott Mann says, connect with people through, authentically, as if your life depended on it. And those relationships have been very meaningful to me. And because I intuitively did those things when I was working as, whether I was in a leadership position, whether informal or formal leadership positions, I connected with people. And because of that, even 2 years retired now, I get deputies calling me and people reaching out through social media and firefighters and, just people I've met who are connecting with me. It really is just a magical thing, and I know I'm belaboring this, but I have gotten calls since I've retired or text messages at least once a week, just people wanting to talk. Because I was very vocal, not to the depth that I am now, but I was very vocal in 2020 and up until 2023 when I retired. And of course, now with this platform, I'm very vocal about these things that we experience and specifically what I've experienced. I'm not a clinician. I don't have a master's degree in any of the things that are pertinent to being a clinician or social work. I never went to peer support counseling or peer support training. So, I mean, I can give you places to go and people to call, but I'm not that guy. I'm not equipped to do that. And yet I have people reaching out to me because I'm being authentic and I'm telling my story. That's been the best part of this journey. It's not being a published author. It's not, being an aspiring speaker or any of that stuff or having my own podcast that is not sponsored. But making these authentic connections with people who trust me with their information and trust my counsel has been very rewarding. And over the last several weeks, I've had people reach out. One of my old zone partners, a guy who I consider one of the better cops I've ever worked with. Just a hard charger, fantastic guy. He and I worked together for years and years and years. He's even taken my dad on ride-alongs. So he reached out to me and said, "Hey, man, this is uncomfortable, but I've been really paying attention to the stuff that you're posting on social media, and I think I need help." Now, I did a thing back in May for a local news channel for the ETMS therapy that had been going on. And, one of the things that I said during that interview for the local news, I said, one of the bravest things you can do is recognize that you need help and raise your hand. The barrier to entry to getting help is simply raising your hand and saying, "I need help." That's it. There's no requisite number of calls you have to go to, no number of years. You don't have to have seniority. And trauma is not a competition. And the fact that this guy has been going the pace that he's been going and endured the things that he's done for better than 2 decades. And I've been with him on a lot of those things. For him to say, I think I need help, and it was me that inspired him to get there, I'm not worthy of that, I don't feel. And I know there's people out there thinking, "Doug, you're speaking poorly to yourself." And that's not the point of this. The point of this is that whatever it was reached him or inspired him to reach out to me and say that he needed help. We got him to the help that he needed. We got him into some therapies, and he is doing much better. And it was funny because he said during that time that he had just ordered my book, and I was like, "Bro, you were like my eighth favorite zone partner," which is not true. He was my first or second, really. I'm actually staring at the picture of my first, um, Rich. He's in the book. Uh, I feel like if I was talking to Rich instead of to the camera, that this would be easier. And I was right. Um, But anyway, he said, I just ordered your book. And I was like, "Dude, you're a dick. The book's been out for 6 months and you haven't read it yet." And he said, "I was afraid if I read your book that it was going to tell me what was wrong with me." I was like, "Brother, there's nothing wrong with you." These seemingly abnormal reactions to abnormal stimulus, these are normal reactions. There's nothing abnormal about it. This is your body trying to protect itself to make sure that you stay in the game. And we got him to the help that he needed, and he is doing much better, and I'm so grateful and so very happy for that. Recently, last week, we had a deputy pass away, health complications. I knew the kid. I remember teaching him in the academy. He worked for me when I was a new supervisor when he was a rookie. Big, big dude, capable of anything physical. He's an Army veteran. Great dude. Great dude. Good husband, good man, good friend, good cop, good detective. All of the things you would want in a buddy. And once he wasn't working for me anymore, we had a casual relationship and said, "Hey, buddy, what's up? What's going on?" But um, as most things do, especially with generational gaps and all that stuff, they go off and do their own thing in their lives and their own friend groups and stuff like that. So we weren't that close, but still, him passing as young as he did, it was an impact to me. I was like, man, that's freaking awful. He's a good dude. Then I didn't know this, but my cousin actually went to high school with him. And she reached out, "Did you hear?" Like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot you guys were friends." um, but I knew that there was going to be an impact. And I reached out to several deputies that I knew were his friends just to check on them, just to check in, see how they were doing. And, I knew that they were going to a funeral, and I didn't go to the funeral. It was just this past Monday. And I don't do well at funerals at all. I don't like them, and nobody does, except probably the funeral directors. But I don't like funerals. I did not want to be around. It's a first responder funeral. It's going to be loaded with first responders. And honestly, there's people in my former agency that I don't ever care to see again. And it's not because of me being retired. It's because, well, I didn't have a use for them while I was working. So I'm not going to now be retired on my day off, go and put myself in a position that I'm already uncomfortable in and see people that I don't want to see. So I didn't go. But I was very aware of that it happening, and I was very aware that he had friends that I knew and I respected that are going to have some issues. So I reached out to one of my buddies this morning, somebody I have a great relationship with. He's actually in the book, and I'm not going to tell that what part of the book he's in, but I reached out to him today, and we were talking, and just BSing for about 40 minutes. And finally, I said, "Bro," I said, "by the way, I'm not calling you just to catch up and all this bullshit. I was calling you to see how you were doing. I know that there was a death. I know the funeral was on Monday, and I know that it's impacted people as it should. How are you doing?" And he said, "Bro, I've been to funerals before." And he said, I knew the guy, but we weren't like, vacationing with families close. And some people were. He said, but this one really, really fucked me up. I was like, yeah. I said, why do you think that is? He's like, yeah, I don't know, man, but it really, really messed with me. And I said, well, I got a theory if you want to entertain me. And he's like, yeah, bro, what are you thinking? I said, well, let's look at it this way. You have a lifetime of experience. You were in the military. You were deployed during the GWAT. There's things going on there. You've been in well, I don't want to give too much away. You've been in hairy situations where you've been forced to take someone's life. Um, you've been doing this almost 2 decades at a very high level. Good dude. Um, about as solid as they get. And he's a very, very good friend of mine. He and I have a bond that is, we've had some experiences together that not too many people can say that they've had together. In fact, I told him what we went through together gives you a ticket to be in a room that not a lot of people get to be in. And a lot of people don't want to be in, given a chance, just because of our experiences. But I told him, I said, like me, I'm going to venture to say that while you are doing things, you have not done enough to offload a lot of those things. You haven't emptied the cup as much as you think you should. And I wasn't being critical because, well, I'm that guy too. Still, even to this day, I know the benefit of it, and I could be doing quite a bit more to offload and to grow quicker than I've been growing. Um, he's like, "Oh, bro, you ain't lying." And I said, "Maybe it's just all of those things trickled up, and as full as your cup is, maybe just a thimble full of water is enough to break open the floodgates." And he's like, "Yeah, that could be." And we started talking about things that brought us to emotions, thoughts, instances, movie quotes, stuff like that. And I shared with him, and I'm going to share with you now that my I found that I've been getting very, not emotional, but very introspective, very, very thoughtful of the things that are going on around me. So things that inspire me to be emotional, pure beauty and innocence, puppies, stories of valor, of sacrifice, people doing for something greater than them. Uh, those things inspire me. Heartfelt, authentic things that leave an impact. And I'm not talking about, hey, you picked up trash on the sidewalk. I mean, like that made an impact in someone else's life. Being selfless. Those are the things that inspire me. Those things will always bring a lump to my throat or a tear to my eye. And I shared with him, I said, I was watching something on the Tickety Talk the other day. And yes, that's right. I'm over 50, so I call it the Tickety Talk. I was watching it the other day, and it was a video from the 4th of July. Had an old man that said, the text said he was a veteran. I don't know how they know that. But he was walking by a house, and there was a flag flying on a flagpole off the eave of the house, and it had fallen as he was walking by with his dog. Most people nowadays would just keep on walking. Not my house, not my problem. Not this dude. He stops and he goes right up to the front door, rings the doorbell, doesn't get an answer. So he ties his dog up to the chair there and he starts trying to fix the flag. And he takes the flag down because it had fallen on the ground. And, if you're a good Boy Scout, you know that once the flag is on the ground, it has to be folded and properly disposed of by being burnt. So, I mean, there's a big whole ceremony things. Take it to the local Boy Scout troop. They'll do that stuff for you. So anyway, this old timer knows that, and he's trying to sort this out himself. And there's a passerby, some guy walking by, and he stops him and asks for help. And these two dudes are now on the front porch, and they've got the flag out, and they are folding it properly. You know, military style, Boy Scout style, U.S. Code style. They are folding this flag with the greatest degree of reverence they can on this front porch of a stranger's house. And the caption on the video came up and said, "This is the America I believe in." Now they folded this flag with reverence, and the little football you'll see over my shoulder there. I have one that my buddy Joel gave me from one of his deployments from Afghanistan. But they folded it up and he put it on the rocking chair. I mean, reverence the whole thing, two-handed, placed it there, and they both paused. Guy got his dog, and they put their arm around each other and walked off and went on their separate lives. This thing had like 1,000,000 hits. I found myself crying like a fucking child watching this video. Just because it was somebody took their time out of the day to do the right thing. And it just really, really struck me. So I tell that story to my buddy, and he's like, "Yeah, bro." And he said, there's an old show, Band of Brothers. He says, "I've seen the series several times," and I kind of laughed, and because I know in my head I bought the box DVD set back in like 2000. It's in a big metal tin, looks like an old sea ration can. And he says, at the very end of it, when Dick Winters is talking, they go back and they talk about everybody and where they were now when the documentary, well, the movie was made. And Dick Winters says his grandson asked him, was he a hero? And he says, I wasn't a hero, but I served in a company of heroes. My buddy was telling me that part, and I knew what he was getting ready to say as he was working into the pre-story going into it. And I found that I had a lump in my throat. And he goes, bro, that just fucked me up because I've seen it so many times, but it just still hits me. And I laughed and I said, I knew what you were going to say, man. And as you were saying it, I started getting emotional. But anyway, things like that make me emotional. And yes, they will bring a tear to my eye. I'm telling y'all that to tell you this, that I know that when I start speaking, I'm going to get emotional about the things that I'm speaking about, especially to people in a live audience. There's going to be an uncomfortable pause. There's going to be a catch in my voice. I know that before I go into it, that this is something that is going to happen and something that's going to impact me. I'm also very aware that my cry face is actually much worse than my race finish line photo face. Anybody try to look cool when they're, sprinting across the finish line of either a triathlon or a 5K or 10K, your face doesn't look cool. It's absolute pain and it's not attractive. So I know my cry face, although rare, is not attractive. So I get to live with that too. Anyway, I feel like this is the Seinfeld episode of my podcast where it's a show about nothing. But I just wanted to share some of those thoughts with you, man. I just a buddy of mine started or told me when I started all of this stuff, he's like, "Yeah, bro, posting videos and clips of podcasts that you're on and other people's thoughts, that's fine and wonderful, but people want to hear what you think about these things. What are your thoughts?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool. What do you know about anything?" Well, he's a very successful businessman and one of my old mates, um, who again is one of just a very few people who who would do anything to see me successful and to do anything to help me. So be love if you're listening, Brendan. Thanks, pal. This may get one or two listens, but either way, my hair is down. I'm bearing all the scars to the world. Here it is. Here are my thoughts, my secrets, my insecurities. Yes, I've written a book. Yes, I have a podcast. Yes, I have friends. Yes, I still have my own issues. Yes, I still have growth to do. But here are my scars. Here are my scars. There are things that still scare me, mostly things that I'm in control of. Like, am I actually going to publish this 47-minute rant of me and all of that stuff? I don't know. I don't even have notes. I've just been picking pieces off the foam for the last 47 minutes. Anyway, that's all I have, folks. You know what? I would love to connect with anybody who listens to this. If this has resonated with you, if you thought something about it, or if you just want to give me some input, on Tell This Story, how it's going. If you want to give any input on my book, Hiding in Plain Sight, The Truth About Trauma Service and the Way Forward, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it anywhere. In fact, unfortunately, I was going to record some more of the Audible today, but I think I've worn out my voice, or at least the prime voice time for today. Um, so I think I'm just going to do a couple of calls and it'd be done for the day. But reach out to me either at tell_this_story on Instagram, find me on LinkedIn, or just go to dougwhiteofficial.com. New website incoming, by the way, and just send me a message, connect with me. Let me know what you're thinking, what I can do better, what we can do better, um, or just say, hey, you know, if you've already read the book, if it has spoken to you, please go to Amazon and leave a rating or some feedback. Um, if it's a 3 because you thought it sucked, give it a 3 because it sucked. If it's a 5, give me a 5 and tell me why. I hope it's landing. I don't hope. I know that it's landing with the people that need to hear it. And I'm very proud of it. And I'm very proud that it's helping. Well, it's helping the people that need to hear it. Although I have these platforms, I need your voices and I need your help to get it out there, get it in the hands of the people that need it most. Again, proudly sponsored by Tyler Huckett and Polestar Coffee. By the way, this is not a paid promotion. He's a friend of mine. He's a veteran and he likes roasting coffee. So he started a business called Polestar Coffee. You can find them at any of their brews or any of their blends at polestarcoffee.com. He's a good dude. He's about, and I got a lot of good people in my life, but he's one of the tops. He's a good man. Good man. One of those people that I have stories with him that bring me to tears. He's a good dude. So support Polestar Coffee. Polestarcoffee.com. Mention this story at checkout, get 10% off. And that's all I've got. Yeah. So until next time, remember, we're stronger than before. Together. See you soon.